is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Cradle, Book 9, Chapters 19, 20, and Epilogue. In these chapters, I know that I said that part of the hero's journey is losing the thing that they depend on. And I know that I said that clearly Lyndon was going to have to go without Dross eventually. But I just didn't think we'd gotten there this fast. And I don't want to be here at all. And it's so pitiful when it happens. And Dross, come back. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Andy for commissioning this entire book, entire series. Andy is the MVP. So, I am so sad, you guys. Like I said, I knew this was coming, and I'm certain Dross will be back in some capacity. As we hear, his personality may be different, but I'm sure he's coming back. It does not matter, though. It still hurts so much. You guys, I wasn't ready. I'm not. You never are, right? When you've grown to care about someone, whether that someone is real or not, even when you know it's coming, you're never actually ready. You know? There are characters that you're like eager to see go, eager to see die, eager to see be done with their arc because you weren't feeling it for whatever reason. That does not happen often in these books, I'll say that. But I mean, it happens. But when you like someone, even when you can feel that this has to be part of it, you don't want it. And it's sort of like Orthos, you know. I knew that we would see Orthos again eventually. I was sure of it. And it wasn't very long before we saw him, you know, crashing into Sacred Valley. But nevertheless, on the reread, when Orthos says goodbye, I still got teary-eyed. I know he's coming. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it just broke my fucking heart. Okay. So, chapter 19. We're still in the middle of the fight with the Dread God. And everybody has their little parts to play. So the Titan's foot comes down on Yeren. And she uses the sword, which basically causes this, like, huge piece of, like, ice to form around his foot up to the knee and lock him in place. And Lyndon is like, wow, that's amazing, but also my girl's under there and I'm not super happy about this. I hope she's okay. But he doesn't have time. Then Zeal comes in. Green rings had bloomed one after the other, stretching off to the south. Zeal flew through the air like an arrow, each ring of script hurling him into the next. Lyndon wondered why Zeal hadn't used that technique to escape, but his question was answered by a quick scan of his spirit. He was straining his channels and running out of Madra. He couldn't keep this up for long. As he flew in, another spiritual presence caught Lyndon's attention. Mercy dashed in, covered in her Akura bloodline armor, and she wasn't flying, she was running. And she's got Orthos under her arm like a fucking football. And he begins to expand as she does until he is very large. And she winds up getting punched with such force that her bloodline armor cracks. It does not shatter, but it cracks. And she stands her ground, and Lyndon is watching this like, that must hurt like such a motherfucker. And she hurls Orthos through his legs as he's growing. The Dread God turned over its shoulder, Madra building between its jaws. "That's your cue," Dross shouted. On his 1,000-mile cloud, Lyndon shot forward. No matter how much he poured into the cloud, it would be a few seconds before he reached the Titan. It would have shoved Mercy back and released its technique on Orthos by then. Dross had called him in too late. But then, here comes Aethan, flying through the air like a thrown spear, is the way he describes it. Zeal's circle only added acceleration. As he flew closer, Lyndon heard a voice. "Jump!" Aethan called as he flew past Lyndon's face. Mercy endured another heavy blow, and Orthos shoved himself into position and began to wrestle the Dread God around to face Lyndon. It didn't cut off its striker technique, as it braced itself on its tail, which I keep forgetting it has, by the way. I know that it's been mentioned a bunch of times, but every time I picture the Titan, I think I'm picturing the Titan of Braavos that straddles the entrance to the Bay of Braavos in Song of Ice and Fire. So I'm pretty sure I just have a completely wrong mental picture is the problem. It refocused on the next target it saw, Aethan. Lyndon expected Aethan to take the hit on his hollow armor, but Lyndon had been given his instructions. He jumped. So, long story short, all of this attack, which is so beautifully choreographed, so carefully done, so specific to each person's strengths, it almost works. It comes really close. And Lyndon lands on the back of the Titan's neck and he begins to consume. And he feels what the Titan is feeling, which is basically frustration. This thing is really wanting, it thought it was going to find the thing that it's been after. Not only did it not find it, but now it just kind of wants to go to sleep. And here these things are messing with him. And it's really remarkable to me how now he was being kept awake by some annoying buzzing flies when all he wanted to do was eat and then sleep. And this moment just really, that hit for me. That's a relatable feeling, you know? I just wanted to eat something and go to bed, and I'm getting all these texts, and it turns out I uploaded one of the episodes wrong, and somebody went and posted a spoiler in the comments, and now I have to go deal with that, and can I just rest? Oh my god! So, this seems like good news, initially, and Lyndon's like, well, it wants to leave. We can drive it out. This is great. And the Titan abandoned its targets that cost it too much energy. Lyndon could take that energy away directly, but only hold so much. Though he hadn't rested enough, he returned his right hand to the stony skin and once again used Consume. As the Titan's power crashed over him again, Lyndon knew immediately they weren't going to make it. This amount of energy loss was nothing to the Titan. It was vaguely aware there was some kind of flea draining its spirit, but it couldn't be bothered to deal with him yet. And Dross is like, God damn it. I really thought that was going to work. I thought it might. There's been a lot of time that it's been in this field. Shit. And Lyndon asks, what do we do? Because the Titan at this point has Orthos and he's ready to chuck him. Just kill him. And Lyndon feels Dross slow down time again and asks, you wouldn't throw me away, would you? Y'all, can I just tell you how my fucking heart shattered into 1,000 pieces? He jokes around about how he was, a failed experiment. They threw me away, didn't care, called me useless, failure, waste of time, dross. But then it turns out that is actually part of his deep fear, is that he is going to be thrown away. And everybody has one. It just didn't occur to me that Dross would have one. I just didn't think of it. And frankly, it's too much. It hurts my heart, and I don't like it. And Will Wight, I would really appreciate it if you would fucking knock it off with all of these emotional hits that you're giving me in this book, because it's a lot. And I just... it's rude. It's just really rude and unkind. And I don't know what you think you're doing, but I am here for fist pumps and happiness only, ever. And I do not appreciate nuance, character development, challenges and struggles. I veto all of it, and I am now on strike. This is just too much. You went too far. So, there's that. And he says this, and of course, I think we all probably knew when Dross asked this, he was about to do something fucking dramatic. I was very, very concerned. I was worried that he would genuinely be gone. Because, I don't really know how this works. And he asks Linden, I've always been afraid of being thrown away. Please just keep me around. Linden couldn't understand why Dross was wasting Madra for this conversation. And I'm like, Linden, oh my God. You don't, of course he doesn't. And he says, I'm not throwing you away. Now please help. Dross let out a relieved breath. Okay, good. I just needed to hear it. Then dream aura flooded out of him in a tide so expansive that Linden wondered where it had all come from. How had Linden not sensed vital aura this strong in Sacred Valley? But he had sensed it, he realized. This was the power he'd drained from the Titan's thoughts. Linden had left sorting those to Dross. Now, the aura flowed out, but not in a disorganized mess. It was being woven into a technique that Linden recognized, the Fox Dream. And Linden pours his own soul fire into the technique to make it stronger and more convincing. And he is still sort of linked to the Titan because of pulling on his power. And he's able to see the vision that the Titan is seeing. 8 figures hovering over Mount Samara, all monarchs. And the Titan even feels their power. One more detail. The turtle in its hands had vanished. I love that. Adding that tiny little extra thing all right, we're going to get it to go away, but also we're going to make sure that it just forgets about Orthos and drops him. Not ideal that he be dropped. And as we see later, he's pretty severely injured, actually. But better than being fucking thrown. And the Titan just is oh, damn it, I really thought that I found it this time. Only to find a patch of nothing. Well defended nothing, too. And there was nothing it hated more than wasting its effort. With a slow, ponderous motion, the Titan turned and walked back the way it came. And Linden lands and says, Dross, thank you. And nobody responds. And the chapter just ends with, Dross? And I was like, oh, you bastard. So, then we go to chapter 20. Iteration 001, Sanctum. Suriel is restoring Machiel, and he is looking into the future, trying to find a way to preserve fate. He is so badly damaged that she has to repair him really carefully. If she does it too quickly, it could fuck him up. And she's looking at a map of existence, and this description really was like so evocative to me. I loved this. A blooming map of existence spread out in front of her at her will, a twisting nest of blue light with bright lights hanging off it like berries on a bush. The branches were the way, the spots of light, the iterations. All of them should be bright blue with a core of white, but too many of them were gray. Far, far too many. As she watched, one of the lights from the cluster labeled Sector 12 turned black and withered away. Iteration 129, Oasis. The Mad King and his scythe had finished their reaping. I really want to know what the Mad King is after here. We know he's possessed by this fiend. Allegedly, I think. It seems like he's not exactly happy about the situation and sort of like gave in. So that's not to say that he's completely without free will, but he's certainly been influenced. But what exactly does he want? To just kill all the worlds that are on the way? Like, why? I know that they're trying to fight the Abaddon because they consider them, what's the word? They called them like tyrants, right? The Mad King did, at least. But why is he killing people? What is it that he's trying to actually accomplish? What's his end game? For all of existence to just be wiped out? Like, what does he want? Maybe I just wouldn't get it because he's a fiend and they just want different things than I would want. So, let's see. Suriel continued focusing on Machiel's restoration. There was one more thing she could do for the good of all existence, but first she had to wait. Finally, she felt the touch of Telariel, the spider. He rarely left Sanctum, but now even he was on the battlefield, retreating temporarily from a victory to connect her to all the other judges. So this is when she has to tell everybody that we fought the Mad King and we were defeated. And everybody freaks the fuck out. Which you would. You know? I love the reactions of different people. One's surprised, and the one's like, I'll fuck him up myself. Zerachiel, the fox, immediately ran to an iteration farther away from the Mad King. Good instinct there, Zerachiel. Right here. I'm with you. I also would do this. All judges do not engage the Mad King. Abandon any world you cannot hold and fortify those you can. The Vroshir will finish their raid and many will die, but soon enough they will leave. We will retreat, endure, and rebuild. So, it's fucking grim. Basically, it's like, save who you can, but we're not going to be able to fucking extend ourselves the way we want to. And this had been hinted at, that we were in an unsustainable, like, ratio. Because Osriel was the only one who could cull worlds satisfactorily. But they had never been able to do it before. And because they had him, they were allowing so many new worlds to spring up due to sort of falling back on him for so long, that they knew if they didn't get somebody else to do the job, they weren't going to be able to keep this up forever. And now it's like the Vroshir kind of calling their bluff a little bit and being like, oh, you thought you were going to have to eventually face the facts. But what happens if he's just gone and you don't have a replacement ready, you know? And again, my theory on this is that Lyndon will eventually be the replacement. But part of me hopes that's not it, because he's like such an obvious, that's an obvious ploy for me, you know? Osriel disappears and then this character begins to really rocket upward in his powers, and it all lines up with the void and emptiness. But at the same time, I just don't see how it could go any other way. Also, I don't really grasp the Abaddon still that well. Like, seeing how many people were just able to ascend recently from the Akura family, I don't know what happens from there, because there were like children with them, right? Am I misremembering that? I feel like there were some that were very young, but maybe they were called like daughters and stuff, and I immediately put them into the child category, and they weren't. Let's see. Evil says they need people to keep their domain in existence, but they don't need those people to be free or to empower their enemies. I'm sorry, Evil, you're saying they need people to keep their domain in existence, they being the Abaddon, but they don't need those people to be free. I'm not following who you mean and what, because my question had been what the Mad King wants. Are you talking about the Vroshir? Austin Ashley says, yeah, there were, and servants. Okay, so yeah, I just keep thinking about the Abaddon as being like, cream of the crop going to begin to be like soldiers for the army of light kind of thing. And clearly that's not really how it works. If all of these people are able to go as a family with fucking servants, this is different than I thought. So that's part of what's sort of holding me back from theorizing too much about this also, is that I'm just not feeling like I have the ground firmly under my feet. Jan says the Abaddon and the Vroshir need people to keep their domain in existence, but they don't need those people to be free. But don't those people, like killing all of these people, I don't really know that answers my question. I don't get what the point is. I'm sorry, everybody, if it's boring to listen to me try and figure this out, but it's just it feels so nebulous at this point, and I think it's probably supposed to. Okay. Min says people tie the Abaddon to the way. So are they just trying to make it so that the Abaddon are not attached to the way at all anymore, and thus make the Abaddon sort of like marooned in emptiness? Are they trying to cut them off from it, I guess? That's pretty rough. Okay. So the people are just like circumstantial. It's like the people are the roots of the tree. And they're just cutting the tree in half. And the Abaddon are like the branches and the leaves. And we're just like down there in the dirt going, wait, what? And winding up being killed because somebody wanted that top part. And we're not even like a factor, really. It's just sort of part of the pruning, I guess. That's rough. I take that very personally. Yikes. All right, so oh, that's so mean. Okay. So the wolf was the last to agree. Frustrated, she couldn't vent her frustrations on the enemy, but she satisfied herself with the knowledge they would strike back someday. Even her presence couldn't speculate on the total number of lives that would be lost. Those taken by the Vroshir would survive, but the Mad King and his allies would capture only those who could benefit them in some way. Most would perish, and some of the worlds they lost would be vital ones. She returned her attention to the map of the way hovering in front of her. Sector 12 was entirely gray now, and other sectors were darkening around it. Abaddon had pulled back, leaving that region almost entirely undefended. One sector in particular was surrounded, left entirely to the mercy of the Vroshir. Sector 11. With a heavy heart, Suriel reached out to the first world in the sector, Iteration 110, Cradle. Before the world was entirely closed off to the rest of the way, she found a tiny piece of herself manifested in reality. She resonated with it, sending a message through the blue candle flame inside. It had to be simple. More simple impressions than words. "I'm sorry," Suriel sent. "Hold on." She spared an instant of grief for the world. The Mad King, who had once been the hero Daruman, knew the significance of Cradle. He knew it was the birthplace of the original Abaddon, and perhaps more importantly to him, Osriel's home. Now, it was at his mercy. Don't love it. I just really, poor Lyndon. I have so much, sympathy for him and his friends, because they just really are resting down there thinking, okay, that's the end of the worst of it. They just don't know. And oh, God. I feel like Lyndon and his friends are all of us after, the 2012 election. And feeling like things are, bound to be on an upswing soon. It's been really bad since 2008 when there was that massive economic downturn and a lot of shit went kaput. But we have to be on an upswing now. And we just didn't know, precious babies. How could we know? And then just one thing after another, y'all. I swear to God, it has been a rough. So, then we go to Ethan, and this part fucking killed me. Ethan gritted his teeth. Cut it off. Yaren grabbed his hand too tightly. "Are you sure? Do it." With the chime of a tiny bell, Yaren carefully used the endless sword, and Ethan's glorious hair fell to the floor. Y'all, he really got me with this one. Normally, I kind of know where a joke is going. I can see it coming. But this, I really thought we were about to have Ethan lose a hand, because y'all heard what I said last time when he injured himself. I was like, oh, well. And I really thought, and then it was his hair, and I was taking a walk listening to this part of the audiobook, and I fucking cackled. I must have looked like a lunatic, but I was laughing so hard. The whole way that he does the narration, too. And when he looks in the mirror, he still looked great. Oh, God, this killed me. You looked like a yellow dog that climbed out of the fireplace. Your hair was suffering, and we eased it on its way. A mirror. Bring me a mirror. And I love that she hands him his pocket mirror. Everything about this is so perfect. It's not even just she found a mirror. No, she has his mirror that he definitely carries with him. Of course he does. I love it. I love it so much. So, at this point, he tells her that she can go take care of some other people. He is covered in bandages and scripts and has eaten some medicine. And we get a bit of a sort of check-in with everyone. Mercy and Zeal were both asleep, recovering from spiritual wounds. Little Blue had seen to them both. I was about to say had been seen to. No, Little Blue is okay. Mercy would wake soon. She had strained her bloodline far beyond its limits and would have suffered worse if she hadn't left the battle once her armor broke. Her mother would be able to restore such an injury, no doubt, but then they would all be in the unenviable position of explaining to Malice why they let a monarch's overlady daughter face down a dread god. If she recovered on her own, Malice need not be bothered. Well, I personally want to see the scene where Malice finds out about this, because Malice is just... I just love her so much. And every time that there's a chance for us to have another conversation with her, I'm sincerely, for it. Zeal had pushed himself too far, but fortunately not beyond the restorative benefits of the Pure Storm baptism. Athan had performed the next stage with his arms stiff as boards, and now Zeal slept with sparks of lightning madra playing through his spirit and over his body, and I thought that sounded so cool. All these things are just, I wish that we could see them on the screen. Someday. Orthos was in the worst shape, and his size couldn't be reversed until he woke up and was provided with more soul fire, which I was like, oh, that's rough. He hovered over a hill outside like a mid-sized dread god himself, drifting on green cushions of life aura guided by a script. Everyone had donated life-aspected natural treasures to the effort, and now his flesh was knitting itself together at visible speed. Yaren had not walked away unscathed either, but she'd recovered before everyone but Lyndon. Veins of bright red madra covered her body, replacing broken flesh, including a chunk of her hip. What? Again, I want to see it. So, she tells Athan, scream if you need more coddling. I'm going to go and deal with Lyndon. And Athan is like, I think you may want to let him be alone for a little bit. And she argues with him about how Lyndon hasn't really been alone for quite a while, and she thinks that she should go see him. But he can see that really in her heart she kind of knows that he's right on this. I'd contend he shouldn't be fighting his way on his own. Nor will he have to, Athan agreed, but sometimes you need time to yourself first. Her expression shifted subtly as she wrestled with herself, and Athan could read the pain on her face. She knew he was right. She'd pushed through loss enough times herself. And I really loved this because it is true when you are, watching somebody that you really love go through pain. Sometimes what will make you personally feel better is not what they need. And that can be very difficult to cope with, knowing that, yeah, but I want to talk to them because I want to feel like I'm doing something. And it's not actually like what they need to be better. It's just tough, man. So I appreciated her not really necessarily knowing the right thing to do here until he suggests that she leaves Lyndon alone. And I also, we're so used to Athan making suggestions and stuff, but already knowing because of his ability, because it's always been sort of a practical thing. It's not an emotional thing. And I found it interesting here that he was able to be so sensitive to what Lyndon might need emotionally, and also convey it to Yaren in a way that was, in my opinion, very tactful compared to how fucking Athan normally behaves. This was just a nice moment that he doesn't often get because he can be so insufferable at times. So he says that he's going to go and see somebody other than Lyndon himself. And she says, you won't be sneaking up on a deaf brick because of his busted legs. You underestimate my legendary grace and agility. Athan hobbled across the ground, his every step clattering on the floor. Oh, God. So, she even has to open the door for him. Then we go to Jai Chen. And y'all, I had wondered aloud at some point what had happened to the rest of the Jai clan. But I wondered, and then I stopped wondering. I just stopped. I didn't care. My Jais were fine. The rest of the Jais could get fucked. As far as I was concerned, they could all kick rocks. And so when they run into a bunch of fleeing Jai clan members that have holed up in the desolate wilds, I was so mad because I was like, I fucking should have known. I should have known. But I didn't know. And the whole thing is really on the edge of a knife here, because they are not apparently like easily recognizable, but I feel like Jai Chen isn't. Jai Long, with his fucking face, is, right? Like, they're gonna figure it out. I know that Ethan offers her a place to stay eventually. Like, he offers them a home, a permanent place. Not even, when I say place to stay, it sounds like he's saying you can hang with us until you manage to put enough in your savings to get your own place. But no, he's like offering them a partnership, basically. However, unless the next book starts with them already there, I feel like if they spend any time with the remainder of the Jai clan, they're going to figure out who Jai Long is. And I feel like that is not going to go well, because he literally murdered so many of them. Like, it was really bad. I don't know. I also don't know, like, the Jai clan, it seems like Jai Daisho, he was an underlord. And he was the highest ranking member. He was the only one that ever reached Underlord for like 50 years, right? So maybe Jai Long, if he advances, he could be the leader of the clan. But I don't think he would want to do that necessarily. Although it would be very advantageous to have like an entire clan. I don't know. I'm just very curious what the implications of this are, because so far she's able to claim, oh yeah, we are a clan from a sage that you've never heard of. That's definitely going to work, and it does. But I'm like, this can't last. Like, even if they meet Lyndon, I mean, unless Jai Long is specifically shown to have Lyndon's protection, I think that's the only way this could really work. Even if they recognize Jai Long, if it's clear that he and the Sage of Twin Stars are allies, I guess that will get him out of the spot he put himself in by murdering a quarter of his own clan. But yeah, I really enjoy this whole thing, because she considers what to say when they ask which experts you represent. And I assumed she would say the Akura clan. But it says, but she really had no idea who they were. Important, she gathered. But what if they were even worse enemies to the Jai clan? And I was a little bit surprised that she didn't know who they were. It makes sense, because she didn't grow up in Black Flame Empire. Like, she was there until a child, and then they escaped and went to the Desolate Wilds. So she grew up most of the time out there. But I really would have thought that being in the Black Flame Empire, that the Akura name would be a little bit more known to her. But, you know, I guess really, like, the Naru clan are the ones that's the Emperor's family. So those are the ones that she would know best. So, yeah, she decides to go with, we were sent here by the Sage of Twin Stars. And I absolutely adore how she knows when they're like, oh, of course we have heard of the Sage's, bravery and honor, tales of their heroism. And I really, just the whole way that they have to fake this, and not only fake it, but if she wasn't specific with the pronouns, they might not even know how to refer to Lyndon. You know, she eventually says the sage himself is close by. He was fighting the Dread God. But if she hadn't given them those pronouns, they may have just outed themselves by using the wrong ones and then been like, oh, yeah, no, he, yes, that's who we meant. But this whole thing of them falling all over themselves, trying to act as if we knew all along. Their reputation precedes them when there's no way they could have. It's so good. I love it. So, at this point, they point over her shoulder and say, "Who is that?" And she turns around, and here comes Ethan Aurelius, belly down on a white 1,000-mile cloud wrapped in bandages. Like, basically what I'm picturing is a mummy, but on his belly. And this is just so funny to me. This whole scene, imagining him in that position, talking the way that he does, sounds incredibly funny. And he says, "Let our banner stream behind us." Ethan let the cloth catch the wind where it billowed out to display an unbroken stretch of gray. The banner was blank. "You didn't give me much time to get it sewn yet, but imagine how amazed you would be if I had a banner ready. Pretend that's what happened." I want to know what the banner would look like, too. I mean, obviously 2 stars. But would it be gray? Would it be black? Would it be white? I'm very curious. The black and white feels right, but also he's got the blue going on with one core. So maybe like red and blue for the fire and the clear, the like cleansing sort of watery, I don't know. Curious about it though. I'm trying to picture like a sigil for him. So they do recognize him, Ethan, and they call him the one Aurelius Underlord. That is not actually correct, but I do not represent my family. And I'm really wondering about his brother, who I liked, and whether he has advanced and what's going on with him. Also, I stand by really wanting to know more about his brother's wife. I have been entranced by her since we have heard about her and her weird, like, soul-forged eye, and just extremely curious about her daring do's. So, Will Wight, if you're listening to this episode, which I highly doubt, but if you are, do me a favor and just write like a little something about her, just like for me. Just a tiny tidbit, just a little snack. Give me something. So, there was some fierce debate among the dozens of Jai artists in the back, but after a moment of struggle, Jaihara begrudgingly lowered her head. "We don't have food to share, but you can rest behind our lines until the sage comes." So, he asks Jai Chen for a few days to prepare better accommodations than this. And then says, "I couldn't let our new sect die out in the cold." And she's like, "I just made this up, though." And he's like, "Yeah, how do you think these start? It's always that somebody just makes it up," which is true. This is something that I have begun to sort of unlearn, which I used to be very prescriptivist with language and grammar, and very like, you can't just like put some things together and make a brand new word. Words are words. And then gradually begin to realize every word we ever have said is made up. And new words are becoming things all the time. There are all kinds of dialects that are just as valid as the very proper English that we hold as acceptable. And I'm just a real fan of the notion that you can just like basically do what you want. And if nobody calls you on it, then that's just like reality now. It's kind of fun when you think of it that way. So she asks whether or not she would take a home if they offered one. And she says, "Yes, but it's hard for me to believe it isn't a trap." And as soon as she says it, she's just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I fucking said that out loud." And he says, "It actually isn't this time. I just need someone who knows real sacred arts to sort through all these irons to find some who might actually be worth teaching." And that's very interesting to me, is the concept of all of these people who were living within a suppression field, finding out that they can grow as strong as they can and seeing where some of them go, what happens to them. I'm extremely interested in watching that progression. And I'm also curious about what's going to go on with Lyndon's family, because they're still out there now. Like, is Lyndon going to be able to help his father with his sight? Is he going to be able to help his sister continue to advance? Are people who lived in the suppression field for their whole lives and they're like, you know, in their 40s now. Has it been too long? Are they kind of stuck? Or can they move forward just as much as somebody in a lower stage can? Very interested in seeing all of this. So then we go to North Strider. And he is looking down at the like destroyed countryside and the edge of the coast that has completely transformed due to the Titan. And Malice is with him. And she is talking about having maps redrawn. Her dissolving armor lit up the sky, but it was nothing compared to the red light that retreated north. The bleeding phoenix flying into the trackless sea, not fleeing. Behavioral deviation detected in the bleeding phoenix. Guys, I'll be honest. We were so focused on defeating the Titan and getting the Titan to walk away that I didn't stop and ask myself what the fuck the Phoenix was doing that whole time. And I should have. Because nobody else seemed to be worried about it, I stopped worrying about it. But evidently, yeah, it went off. And I didn't even think about it. Do you think it's feeding to regain its power? Malice asked. I don't know. Ooh, I know how much you love that. She was smirking, he was sure, but she had always valued useless conversation. Ah, North Strider, never changed. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And then finally, she says, he did this. And he's like, yep. And she asks, what could he expect to gain from this about Rhaegon Shen? And I was like, yeah, same question. What's the deal? So then we go to Rhaegon Shen to find out what's going on here. Rhaegon Shen shoved his way through collapsed houses and upturned trees. He was still in his human body, and he was sweating and breathing heavily. He felt as weak as an iron. It was like wearing a suit so tight it had burrowed into his skin. Blech. That sounds horrifying. Finally, the starting point was within reach. The last chunk of masonry rolled away, leaving a towering stone door, carved with the image of a gaunt, sunken human with many grasping hands, its eyes hollow and mouth open unnaturally wide. This was Subject One, at least as he had appeared long ago. A dread god, though few knew that. The man who had become warped by hunger aura, the origin of their bloodline. And I was like, a word? Warped by hunger? Watch out, Lyndon. Don't love it. He commanded the door to open, and it obeyed. The nether gate swung open. Inside, a wood-paneled hallway was lit with flickering scripts. Finally, Rhaegon Shen had gained the wish he'd dreamed of ever since Tiberian's death. Entrance to the Western Labyrinth. Only the shallowest layer, to be certain. The bulk of the work was still left to be done, and the depths of the labyrinth would surely be locked down tight. Fortunately, he had the key. Rhaegon Shen strode into the tunnel on his way to retrieve his new weapon, which I had assumed was going to be what Lyndon finds. But I guess what Lyndon finds is, because Lyndon finds another hand. Is it actually the thing? Because I think that he finds a right hand. Was Rhaegon Shen's the left hand? Are we positive that what Lyndon has is the real deal? Well, all right. Now we're in the epilogue. And he is facing the Ancestor's tomb, which I had thought the Ancestor's tomb and the entrance to the labyrinth were the same thing. I am apparently confused about this. So Lyndon is like, from his connection to the Titan, he remembers the fact that the Titan had been looking for a source of hunger Madra and had a feeling that it actually was there, despite it seeming to the Titan like it was not. And he figures that the ancestor's tomb is the way to start. He gets in and finds this, like, near the door, a dent in space. And because I was confused about where was where, I thought Lyndon was picking up on the traveling of Rhaegon Shen. So when he gets in there and he says, I'm talking to you, and it turns out to be, oh my God, Elder Whisper, I thought that was going to be Rhaegon Shen. And I was like, Rhaegon Shen is so powerful. What are you doing shooting your mouth off? And then it turns out, no, it's Elder Whisper. Thank God. But I got real worried for him for a second there. I was like, Lyndon, look, I know you just got a dread god to walk away, but like, that's no reason to get too big for your britches, okay? So let's see. In the chat, people are saying, iron bodies will hold them back, but they can be reversed and rebuilt, right? 4 entrances, 1 in each mountain. Yeah, Min, and I thought that, like, the mountain, I just thought they were in the same spot, but I guess he's at a different one. Ancestor's tomb was the entrance under Heaven's Glory. Okay, so he's at just a different specific one. Somebody asked a question. Evil One says, are you seeing our chats? Oh, yes, I am. Sorry, I'm not always able to reply right away because I'm in the middle of reading from the book and stuff. So, there's this moment here that, too. He should call for help in case there was something deadly on the other side. Dross could have done that. And I was like, oh, Jesus. Just all of the things that he's going to have moments thinking, Dross could have done this for me coming up. I am not excited about it. And it says the spirit wasn't gone. Not quite. He drifted in Lyndon's soul, right around the base of his skull as usual. But Lyndon didn't see details. His eye, his boneless arms. Instead, Dross felt like a loose cloud of dream Madra, like a 2-dimensional copy of his former self. Ethan insisted that it was possible to bring Dross back, but Lyndon understood the nature of spirits. If Dross returned, there was no guarantee that he'd be himself anymore. And this, like, knowing that Dross may come back with a different personality is very unnerving to me. Also, the whole, like, megalomaniacal thing that was going on with Dross that I was a little bit worried about, I sort of have come to realize is probably tied in with Lyndon's hunger, because Lyndon is just never satisfied. That's part of his personality, is that he always wants to keep going and get more and do more. And it makes sense that Dross would have that kind of personality that wants power as well. It just looks different on him than it does on Lyndon, you know? He focused on the bump in space. It didn't feel like a tunnel to him, or a trap. It felt like a sealed void key, more than a tunnel somewhere else in the world. He stretched out a tongue of black flame, infusing it with his authority. Open. And it unfurled. And he sees art and swords. And this is when he sees all of the stuff that looks like it belonged to the sword sage. Shredded, second rack filled with more black robes, all of them shredded as though by errant sword slices, and the rack of cycling swords next to them all radiating sharp aura. This had to be the sword sage's private storage space. It was the only thing that made sense, but that was impossible. It can't be his, Lyndon said out loud. It's too old. The world would have healed up the entrance by now, and I would never have found it. When no one responded, Lyndon turned slightly over his shoulder. I'm talking to you. And then here comes Elder Whisper. And Lyndon's kind of accusing here, you know, and it's just like, why didn't you fucking warn us what the hell was going on? I did not deceive anyone. At first, we taught our descendants to focus on one technique at a time as an adaptation to the suppression field, but memory fades so quickly, and time is the greatest liar of all. If you had the power to open this space, you could have helped us fight the Dread God. To face one of the four beasts with illusions is to face down a lion with a spider's web. And Lyndon says, that's how we beat it. To which Elder Whisper replies, when you lose what you fought to defend, and your opponent leaves you alive out of mercy. Is that victory? Elder Whisper sighed and let his illusions drop. Perhaps it is. In any case, victory against one of them is temporary. That is why I preserved this place. So, this whole thing is a little bit confusing to me, I won't lie. Elder Whisper is not and has never been human, right? Elder Whisper is a sacred beast and has always been a sacred beast, right? And he says that the last sage to visit was asking forbidden questions. A purple and white flame kindled over a cylinder tucked away in the corner. It was about as high and broad as Lyndon's waist, and made of dull bronze metal. So Lyndon opens it, and there's a cube inside with a symbol, the moon crest of the Aurelius clan. The sage brought this to our lands, a tool granted to him by a monarch, a key to the prison at the depths of the labyrinth, but he was not capable of delving deeply enough. And this hand, you guys have said, is the hand of Subject 1, and that hand is a key that opens the door, I suppose, to whatever is in the center. I thought that what the Titan was after was the actual body of Subject 1. Is the rest of the body what's in the center? And the hands are just each a key? If there's 4 entrances, is there, like, feet in the other 2? Is there a key kept near each of the entrances? Like, where did Rhaegon Shen get his? That's my question. Where did he find his? So, yeah, there's a chalk white left hand. That's right, he has the left. And Lyndon has the sudden urge to, like, eat it. And resists, thankfully. I have no idea what it would do to him were he to eat it. I don't know if he'd be able to process it. If it's too strong for him and would, like, you know, cause him to become another Subject 1, turn into a dread god. I don't know. But it ends with Elder Whisper asking, would you like to know how to kill the dread gods? And I was like, oh, you little bitch. That's where you're going to end it. Wow. Okay. I don't know whether to trust Elder Whisper. I would like to. I think we can. We were inside Elder Whisper's head for like a couple of pages in the first book, and it seemed like Elder Whisper was doing his best. So I think we can. But, Andy says, Subject 1 has a ton of hands, not just 2. Oh, right. I forgot that he's got so many hands in that. Oh, no. So many people could have one. Oh, no. That's bad. Oh, dear. I don't like that. Jan says he got the key from the Aurelius monarch. Oh, right, because he says ever since he killed Tiberius. And it has the Aurelius stamp on it. Why do they have... Is Subject 1 Osriel? Is that what happened to Osriel? No. Is it? No. Does that make sense? That doesn't make any sense, right? Is that anything? I genuinely don't know what to do with that. I think that's nothing. But it might not be nothing. I don't know. Put a little pin in it. Min says that would explain why the Aurelius had the hands of Subject 1. Andy says Subject 1 is not Osriel. Okay. Is Azrael, like, alive? Is he alive? Is he around? Or did he isn't dead. Suriel seems so certain he's not dead. But what did he do then? Where is he? What is... Austin says, some people when this came out didn't like this book as much. Me, I see it as a transition from the Uncrowned arc to the new Kill the Dread Gods arc. Yeah, I can understand people feeling a little bit mixed on this one because it's a little relentless in some ways because of the nature of the Dread Gods and how, like, intense they are. And there's a lot of emotional stuff in here with him coming back to Sacred Valley and how sort of unsatisfying it is. But I admire it, but it certainly is painful. And it's the kind of thing that I was less excited to re-listen to these sections before recording than I was with other books because it was so sad in so many spots. You know, so, but, you know, I don't think that makes it a less good book. It may just be a book that's heavy enough that it doesn't psych you up the way that some of the others did. And not every book should do that. I don't feel like that would really be great writing. So I think that's to be expected. There are going to be books that are difficult. So Min says, I mean, the next book is called Reaper, and Azrael does seem to have a lot of connection to Hunger Madra. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where Azrael fits into all of this. That's why I thought maybe he was Subject 1, or made Subject 1, or killed Subject 1, or I don't know. Evil says, Azrael did die and was reborn in the labyrinth. Do we know that? Where are you getting this stuff, Evil? You'll say things a lot that I don't feel like are in the text, and I don't know. Did I miss something? Or where is that coming from? Nehua says, Will gives us fewer victories in this one, I think. Yeah, and the victory that we get is there's such a loss accompanying it, and the victory is so temporary. Like, we're aware it's temporary, that we don't even get the illusion of victory because we are fully aware it's not necessarily going to last. Min says, Azrael being reborn in the labyrinth and Subject 1 being in the labyrinth is too much of a coincidence. That was in Book 1 when Suriel first came to Cradle. I don't remember that. And I reread the book, like, not that long ago. I did not remember that. Okay. Suriel's POV in Book 1 says where Oz died and was reborn. I didn't remember her saying that he had died and was reborn. The main thing that I remember is him going to Cradle, or going into hiding, basically, and the suggestion that he, like, faked his own death in, was it Harrow? I can't remember where it was. Which turns out to be where he had a battle with Daruman, I think, right? And that's the one where he stole the cape. So I guess that's what he's probably using to hide, now that I think about it. Dadoy. But how? But where? Is he Ethan? He can't be Ethan. We've been in Ethan's POV. If he was Azrael, we would know. So then, what the hell? Sammy says, Suriel's POV in Book 1 says where Oz died and was reborn, but a lot of that was not very clear. There's also a mention of City of Anvils. Huh. Alright, well, I guess I gotta reread it. What can I do? I'm just gun to my head. I have to do it. But yeah, I just, like, there's so many things that you guys bring up and they're like, well, remember such and such. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't remember. And then I'm like, did I just fucking, like, completely miss something? Yes, you did. But I just don't, yeah. I really enjoy this story because it feels like Will knows. You know, there are some books that you read and you're like, I can't tell if the author even knows where they're going with this. It feels like they're kind of flying by the seat of their pants, but I don't feel that way with this. I think Will Wight he has his plan. He knows. He's been knowing. And it's just all on its track, you know? Let's see. Evil says, fan theory, Oz stole Dross and sneaks it into Fury as his presence. If Oz stole Dross, I would level cities. Absolutely fucking not. The mere suggestion gets my hackles up. Definitely do not. How dare. But also, where's Dross? Get him back. All right, so I'm over time and I have to wrap, but I do have to mention the bloopers because they're just extra good, this book. Could be worse, Dross pointed out. There could be 2 dread gods. That, children, is what we call foreshadowing, which I think is almost what I said when we got to that sentence, was like, oh, you son of a bitch. And then we have not a candle's chance in a rainstorm. And Ethan asks whether or not Yaren, was told these, or does she make them up? And she says, sometimes I remember, sometimes I make them up. And eventually she does get to the one that we know, which is not a snowball's chance in hell. Which is, just a little nod to us. Like, yes, we know what one you're thinking of. Okay, fine, she'll say it. Then we have Ethan, a halfling lay here, and the other. What's a halfling? Lyndon asked. Hush, I'm dodging copyright. Will, what are you doing? Oh, this is funny. And then, probably what I think is the best one, Zeal stared down the Kazan patriarch. There's a big monster coming. It's called a dread god. Come with us if you want to live. Okay, let's go, the patriarch said. They high-fived. I love it. That one in particular, I love so much. And then Yaren asks Orthos, what does Lyndon feel like? Like all humans. Soft, but bony. I don't see why you'd need to ask me that. What a question to ask an old, lonely turtle. You would know the answer better than I would anyway, I imagine. Oh my god. So then we have Lyndon gripping the marble. I don't know what to do. Help me. The marble buzzed for a second, then stopped, then buzzed again. On the third buzz, it was interrupted by a woman's voice. New marble, who's this? This is, Weishi Lyndon from Cradle? Oh, yeah, Lyndon, hold on 1 second. Let me put you in here. Cradle, kid, I saved. Okay, I've got you in. Now, let's make this quick. I'm roaming. And then, lastly, Yaren requesting infinite wishes. Wishes to win the next tournament. Immortality. Ability to grant my own wishes. And it turns out this is all a list that Lyndon wrote. Next, I'm supposed to ask for points. Northstrider incinerated the list. And that is the end of the book. And this is where we see Lyndon's story continues in Reaper. Dope. That's a good name. I am nervous about it. Please bring Dross back. Can we please? Can we just fix that? You guys, it's going to be, I don't know how long it's going to be until the next book. And however long it is, I am going to have to wait longer. Because we have to wait for the commission. Oh, this is all going to be so hard. I can't believe I'm caught up to you all finally. But it won't last. All right, everybody. I am way over time. Thank you again so much to Andy for commissioning all of these episodes and the whole series. I owe you one, Andy. Truly. And thank you all for hanging out with me, bearing with me when I do not remember shit. I'm going to reread the series again. Definitely. So, until next time, God knows when that will be. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
was an Unspoiled Network podcast.